Hey everybody, it's Joseph here. I hope you're all enjoying the great coverage Zenny's providing at the NFL Combine. Just take a little break from that. As many of you may have heard, earlier this week, Bob Iger supposedly abruptly resigned from being CEO of Disney. Now, those of you who may or may not follow Disney news or just Disney in general, Bob Iger's been wanting to leave his position since about 2017. Uh, he did have some unfinished business. One of the things he wanted to do in 2017 was create a streaming service, which we all know is Disney Plus. He also had a few properties he wanted to acquire, primarily 20th Century Fox, 21st Century Fox, I should say, and which he did in 2019. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that Bob Iger has had some political aspirations. So I tend to believe that there's a little interesting play there because one of the caveats Rupert Murdoch had in selling Fox to Disney was that the only way he would do that is if Bob Iger stayed at Disney through the acquisition and the years subsequent to that. So his contract, which originally he wanted to leave in 2017, extended twice. He is scheduled to leave his post in 2021. So although the news and the media said that he abruptly resigned, he's been talking about retirement for the last 3 or 4 years. So it's not a surprise to me. It's funny how the news kind of breaking story that he abruptly resigned when we all knew that he was going to eventually leave, if not at the end of this year, 2020, but in 2021. And I believe he's going to hold to his contract of 2021. Now, in replace of Bob Iger is Bob Chapek, who runs the Disney resorts, theme parks, and was instrumental in creating Shanghai Disney, which was an extreme success for them. So Bob Chapek has been around for Disney, I believe, more than 20 years, if not longer. He had several high executive positions at Disney. So it's not a surprise that he takes over as CEO. Now, one of the things that's been said by Bob Iger himself is that he wanted to sway more into the creative side of things. So he'll still be the chairman of Disney, and he'll still have, I believe, the same amount of influence that he always had, but he wanted to focus more on the creative side of things. And Bob Chapek, who is known for running the everyday business of the theme parks, will continue doing so, plus the additional responsibilities of handling the day-to-day business of Disney. An interesting thing, though, about him leaving in 2021 has brought up a number of speculation of what's going to happen with Kathleen Kennedy, who, as we all know, has been, I guess you could say, divisive in the world of Star Wars, because there's some people that love her for the portrayals of characters in the new Star Wars trilogy, and those who weren't feeling her approach, maybe one of them. Now, Kathleen Kennedy has always been a great producer. I think when she took on the role as head of Lucasfilm, there was a slight disconnect. And so when you consider, if I can make the analogy as a huge Raider fan, when you either have a new coach coming in to replace a team, what's one of the first things a coach does? He brings in his own people, his own assistant coaches, his own defensive line coach, running back coach, whatever it may be. So I think with Bob Chapek coming in and taking over officially in 2021, I do assume that he's already probably taken over already. I think the fact that we're hearing about it now, it's already been implemented maybe months ago. And it's just word getting out officially to us. And so what I think they're going to do is that regardless if you fire, get rid of certain high-profile executives like a Kathleen Kennedy, there's caveats on their contracts, and they're still going to be obligated to pay Kathleen Kennedy. So I do think she may have already stepped down a significant role in Lucasfilm, but she's still technically on payroll. And I think once her contract expires, and if I'm correct, it's in December of 2020. If not, it'll be around the same time that Bob Iger officially leaves Disney. And I do believe that Bob Chapek will come in and replace a lot of the executives in the positions that they're in now, one of them being Kathleen Kennedy. The other is Alan Horn, who's director head of Disney Films. He's been wanting to leave for quite a while as well. But Bob Iger, through this transitional period, had recruited Alan Horn to stay within the company and actually pulled him out of retirement to kind of level out and get Disney Film back on track. So moving forward, you can see a lot of big changes coming up, but it's not a surprise that Bob Iger has decided to officially announce that he's leaving Disney. I do believe that he's going to still be an impact player, so to speak, in Disney, and he will take over as chairman, and I think you'll see a lot more creative things come out of his office. One of the things that Bob Iger will leave, I believe, as a legacy is his acquisitions. I have written down here, under Iger's acquisitions, in 2006, he acquired Pixar for $7.4 billion. In 2009, he acquired Marvel for $4 billion. And subsequent around that time, he also acquired Lucas. And I believe Lucas was $4.3 billion. The latest acquisitions, which he accomplished, basically, he did with everything he said he put out he wanted to do. The main thing was starting that streaming service, as I mentioned just a second ago, but also acquiring 20th Century Fox. Now, that was a risk. A lot of people felt that he overpaid for that. And if you remember, there was somewhat of a bidding war with other studios bidding for 20th Century Fox. Now, Disney did pay $71.3 billion for Fox and all its properties. And so it was a coup in the sense that they needed some properties to go out in their streaming service besides Disney films. And so they did that with the acquisition of 20th Century Fox. One of the biggest things that Iger did, not only for the company, but also for the stockholders. I know there was a huge gap in the 80s where Disney was fledgling. Once Bob Iger took over, though, in 2005, it just exploded in terms of the stockholders' holdings, but also the Disney parks as a whole in terms of all of the acquisitions, which I just mentioned. And one of the biggest things is, in looking at my research, Disney's market cap rose to $175 billion during his tenure. That is extraordinary leaps. Now, for those of you who may not know, a market cap, it's hyphenated for a market capitalization, which essentially means it measures a company's worth for its investors. And so $175 billion is an extremely profitable company. And so I think those two things will be the legacy of Bob Iger. Not only his acquisitions of Lucasfilm, which is huge, Pixar, 20th Century Fox, a new streaming service, but also boosting its market capital or market capitalization to $175 billion. So something to keep in mind. Hey, I would encourage everybody out there, if you're in college, you go to business school. This man has created a fortune for a lot of people, but also made a fortune for himself. I think once he retires, he's netting in the tens of millions of dollars in bonuses. And though that's not the reason why you want to get into things, I mean, the impact this man has made for the Disney company is extraordinary. The one thing I do hope with Bob Chapek coming in, when you read the news of Disney, the one thing that bothers me about Disney the most is the pricing of its parks. Recently, they announced another price increase, which I'm totally against. There's certain parts or certain times of the year that Disneyland specifically, is going to be charging up to $200 for a park hopper pass, which allows you not to go to Disneyland, but also California Adventure. And that's just ridiculous. It's way too much. I do hope that somehow that's curtailed. I don't see that happening, but I hope that there's a new philosophy in terms of what you're charging your guests to come in to enjoy the parks. I know it's a business, but greed has its limits. I think when you have your fingers in all the cookie jars, you're eventually going to be shut out somewhere. And I think you keep pricing out your customers from coming to your parks, your guests, you're going to find yourself in an interesting predicament. So, having said that, I just want to give you the latest news on Disney parks and Disney. And keep it here on Zenny62. And don't forget to like and subscribe.